let's talk now about the Ohio State Buckeyes, the third-rate class in America. 13 commitments. This might sound crazy, though. I don't think Ohio State recruiting has really gotten going yet in the 2026 cycle. I know they're currently ranked third, but I think they have a lot more to go. Let's bring in Mick Walker of Letterman Row. Mick, a huge weekend up there in Columbus. I mean, 5 stars all over the place. Let's start with offensive tackle Felix Ojo. We know the pursuit of Jackson Cantwell came up short, but where do you think Ohio State sits with Ojo?
I think they're top 2. I've heard Steve Wilfong kind of echo the same sentiment. Top 2 with Texas heading into this visit. Now, I do think it's interesting. Ohio State seemed to make the play to get the first official visit, and he'll go to Michigan next week and then Texas before going to Oklahoma. I do think they wanted that first official visit. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm excited to kind of hear from Felix why they made that play. But I think it's them and Texas battling up at the top with Michigan, Oklahoma, probably even Florida down there in that final group of kind of a top 5, I guess, with him.
Ojo's recruitment is going to be a real battle. So is Savian Haidider's. And Savian Haidider, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, I probably would have said Ohio State's maybe on the outside looking in. And I think I would have penciled him in to Michigan's class. Now, Michigan obviously still involved. Still, some people consider the favorite. But Ohio State and Tennessee have really made the Savian Haidider recruitment interesting. What's your feelings now that he's in Columbus?
Yeah, it's another one where obviously they have Savian Haidider on campus this weekend. Favor Key, a 4-star coming in next weekend, and then in 2 weeks they'll have Derek Cooper, who you guys talked about with the Zuby coming in.
Yeah.
But they made a very clear play to get Savian Haidider on campus for his first official visit. First guy coming on campus of any of the running backs. I know Ohio State's going all in on trying to land him in this class with Carlos Laughlin leading the way to assistant running backs coach Tony Johnson. They're going to make a big commitment to him when it comes to just pursuit relationships, but also I think they're willing to go pretty high when it comes to just dollars and cents on the NIL front, if that's what it takes to get Savian Haidider in the class. He's their number 1 target, and I think that's why he was on campus. I think they feel like they've made up a lot of ground this spring because they got him on campus again. Carlos Laughlin's been there just about every single opportunity he can be during the spring evaluation period. Brian Hartline even joined him, and we can talk about it later, Josh, but when Brian Hartline gets involved in recruitment, it's pretty good for Ohio State.
Yeah, it's usually a wrap. So maybe about good for Ohio State. Linebacker Xavier Griffin decommits from USC. Everybody thinks he's a Bama lean, but one of the first visits he ends up taking is to Ohio State. Do you think that the Buckeyes have ground to make up on Alabama, and where do you think Ohio State really stands in this thing?
I do think they have ground to make up, but it might not be as much ground as we kind of see just from the outside looking in at this moment. James Laurinaitis was right there at Gainesville High School, I think, for a spring game a couple days after he decommitted. James Laurinaitis stopped by during January, right after the national championship, the same day he saw Tyler Atkinson while in Georgia. They've been slowly and steadily building this relationship, building the relationship with his mother, building the relationship with the player, with Xavier himself, and just trying to chip away, get in this recruitment more and more. Obviously, like you said, Alabama has the ties. I think that the family ties, the proximity to kind of where he's at in Gainesville, but Ohio State feels confident they're in this one. And I'm excited to catch up with Xavier here in maybe about an hour or so to see where exactly they stack after this official visit.
Yeah. And let's move on to edge Luke Welful. He narrowed his list of teams down to a top 4, top 5 last week. Ohio State makes the cut. They get him on campus this weekend. Where do you think Ohio State stands with him?
I'd say they're up there with Penn State. Obviously, his brother goes to Penn State. He's in Happy Valley, so that's going to help the Nittany Lions. But it's unique on a lot of these unofficial visits this spring when you take them. There's different people like assistants or student assistants kind of leading guys around on their visits. When Luke Welful and his dad came to Columbus, it was Mark Pantoni with him hip to hip the whole entire time. And Mark obviously handles a lot of the NIL stuff right now, but he's also a great relationship builder. He's been doing this for a long time. I imagine they spent some more time on this official visit. And like you said earlier, I think Ohio State has a lot of work to just kind of escalate in this class just because they don't have any defensive linemen committed. They have 3 offensive linemen, but I think they want another 3. So that you're talking about getting maybe 4 or 5 defensive linemen, another 3 offensive linemen. That's the meat and potatoes of your class where you're going to really build the numbers up. Right now, Brian Hartline's got his 4 wide receivers. They don't have any running back. Like, there's just a lot of room to grow up because there's some of those positions where you take large numbers. And Luke Welful's a guy I think when it comes to the defensive line class, they would like to get him in there as kind of the cornerstone. But obviously Penn State, Texas, USC are kind of lining up to be big threats in that recruitment as well.
Yeah, and like I said, Letterman Row has a ton of info on there. We're not going to cover it all, but just I want to pick your brain on this a little bit. Who do you feel good about this weekend? Like if there is a player or two, maybe not the biggest names on campus, but if there's a player or two do you think could end up being Ohio State Buckeye from this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, on three, Steve Wilfon's already put in an RPM for Aaron Thomas to go to Ohio State. I believe the three-star offensive tackle from Arizona. He seems to be trending towards Ohio State. He still has official visits scheduled to Florida State, where his dad played in Texas and Texas A&M. If Ohio State can kind of get him to maybe cancel those visits or get him to kind of hold off and maybe make a commitment this week, I think the Buckeyes would love to see that happen. But I think they're in a great spot. Another guy down there, or not down there in the Sunshine State, but a guy from in the Sunshine State is Cam Bickl, the three-star defensive lineman from IMG Academy. He doesn't really get talked about a ton. His only other official visits to Florida State here in a couple weeks, but he's visited Ohio State for the spring game. He's originally a Philly guy, so I think there's just some pull up there. And Ohio State loves to get these 6'2", like 300-pound-ish guys in the class. And so I think Cam Bickl, Aaron Thomas are the two I'm kind of circling the most and excited to kind of hear what's going on after this official visit.
All right, Ohio State fans, you guys can go check it all out on Letterman Row. Mick Walker, appreciate you stopping by this edition of the Live Inside Scoop.